here in my background. You can see the Rhode Island coastline here. I will turn that off in a second, but I just wanted to at least set the stage for our chat today. So I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest for today. His name is Reginald Bess. It's such an honor to have him join us for this conversation. And I just want to express my gratitude to you, Reginald, for taking time out of your day to come and have this conversation with me. Before we really dive in, I want to share a little bit of a story about the two of us. So I do know Reginald from maybe 15 years ago or so. I was the head coach for the basketball team in Michigan, and we had competed against his former team for Atlanta Day School for the Deaf. And it was good competition, and I will, and he thought that he was going to blow our team away. And then when we actually competed, they started to take the lead, and I had to get my team on board. I said, hey, come on, we have better skills than this other team. Let's get together here. And then sure enough, we were able to go on and beat them after all. But it did lead to us, having this conversation, and I was able to share about how I was able to get my team to surpass them in score, because I think we were down by 15 points and we still came out and won. But I shared some of my inspirational comments I had shared with the team, and we would meet each other, from time to time throughout the years, and we would always remember that game. And it was actually, that game was held at Kentucky School for the Deaf because they have a tournament there every year. But it was a good experience and fun memory to look back on. And nonetheless, nice to see you again here, Reggie. So today I just want to have a conversation with you, and I do have some questions that I will ask. You are a Black deaf man, and it's such an honor to have your presence here today. And I just wanted to get your unique perspective on some things and learn a little bit more to start off with about your background, where you're from, what journey you took to get you to where you are today in terms of where you went to college and your other achievements and whatnot. If you could just share with us what that journey, looked like for you. I want to know about your upbringing.
Yeah, hello everyone. As stated, my name is Reginald Bess, but you can call me Reggie, and this is my sign name here at the shoulder, RB. So yeah, I'll introduce myself. I always put up with his ribbon from those back old days. It's tough, but I do it. So I'll just move forward. It is fun to look back though, isn't it? So who am I? Well, I was raised in a mainstream program for deaf children, and that was in Georgia. All the way up from kindergarten up. I was the only one who was deaf and had an interpreter. I was the only one. And only a few of actually Black students. So that was my experience going through elementary to middle school till I got to high school. And that was different. The grades were a little different. They ran different, 8th grade and up. And my team was 8th grade and up, but we were put into sort of groups. That particular school that I attended, there really wasn't many international or Black students there. But anyway, I went through schooling there. So elementary through high school. That was my experience. I just really felt, not valued and just passed through. I remember taking a state test. In 3rd grade, you take these state tests or national tests, and I scored really high. They were surprised. But that made me lazy. I just thought, oh, I got a high score. And I held that attitude all the way to high school. It became a habit of just, not really focusing on school, but instead it was all about basketball for me. Then I went to college, and that was different. I really enjoyed my college time. It was my mother that actually applied for me. I didn't know she had done that. She asked me to write a letter, which I did. I didn't even know what it was for, really, but she said, stop asking all these questions, just write the letter. So I did. Mama told me to do it, so I did it. Anyway, I didn't know why. And then turns out this letter came congratulating me to my acceptance to Clark University, which is a Black university. And I was like, accepted? What? How did I even get in? I didn't apply. And then I also went to Atlanta University. Again, I was the only deaf there. That was different. It was a real culture shock compared to my experiences in prior learning settings, When I got to college and I was talking about, I'm talking about being with a lot of Black people for the first time. But guess what? That whatever attitude was still in me. I knew I was bright, but boy, was I lazy. I graduated though. My major was accounting and math. And after that, I looked for a job, but nobody was hiring. I tried to go through friends and, my hood, if you will, try to get connections, and I didn't know what to do. Looking for a job was hard. And, I realized I had to get a job, right? I had to pay for a living and have a place to live. So I had to get a job. So the Atlanta School for the Deaf was where I ended up. I was a sub at first. I applied for that and went along with that for a while. And then finally things changed. And I decided I wanted to be a teacher. That became real interest. I wanted to teach math. Thinking about teaching math to other deaf children would be something great, and I would enjoy that. But to get certified as a teacher is its own process, right? I thought maybe it was just be a math test, but no, it wasn't just math. There were other things like curriculum and so forth that you had to take and pass in order to get certified. And the math I passed, no problem. The curriculum, no, I didn't pass that. But the principal was like, you've got to go to grad school. I was like, man, are you kidding me? Back to school? So this time I applied because it was about a job. So I applied this time, but I still had that don't care attitude. I was still young, 22 at that time. I don't know. Anyway, so talking about a master's degree now, and I'd heard about McDaniel's, and there was a different other state university. And anyway, I ended up going to Valdosta State. It's in the South, almost near Florida. I'd say maybe an hour from the border, maybe a little more. I'm not sure, not far at all. Anyway, that's where I ended up. Principal congratulated me, and again, that test, it took 2 years. Took 2 years to become officially certified in deaf ed and mathematics. So that struggle was about 2 years for me to become a credentialed math teacher. And it all has to do, I'm not making excuses. I was lazy from elementary school on about studying. So now I'm back in school for a living, I guess, because now I'm at Gallaudet pursuing my PhD. Now I'm studying educational policy. Educational leadership policy is its formal name. And I'm devoted to that and all it's offering me and all that it means.
Wow, that is quite the journey. It's been, it was nice hearing about your various experiences in elementary school, college, your trials and tribulations to become certified. And I know that sort of that attitude, it's easier to just take the easy way, especially if you're bright, right? You don't always feel as if you have to apply yourself so much, but then you felt the results of that, right? Trying to pass those certification tests. And they're not an easy test for anyone to pass, but you actually have to really apply yourself. And to be certified in multiple things and have multiple components of the test too that you have to pass. It's very difficult, but I'm very glad to hear that you persevered you didn't just let it go by. You really felt this passion and you kept at it. You know, you could have just stayed home, right? You could have not gotten a job, or you could have gotten a different job that would have been below, your intelligence level, but you really persisted. And some people they have that resiliency, right? They have that persistence. They just will not give up. And it's nice to see that you have that quality. And now to know that you're in a doctoral program, at Gallaudet University as a Black student, it's tremendous. I'm wondering, how did you decide to pursue your PhD? I mean, did this idea just come out of anywhere, come out of nowhere? Or, I mean, what gave you that drive? What made you want to pursue that? Because I know many people, they have this journey about what led them to pursuing that doctoral level, but what was it for you?
Well, I'll try to summarize it. There's a lot actually to that answer, but I'd say possibly the most important point would be for me, I don't know, to start with thinking about the deaf community, not including me. I didn't sign like them, so I never felt included. I felt looked down upon. I didn't have any deaf in my family. So that's really where it started for me. I guess secondly, failing that test several times made me feel like I'm not worthy of pursuing a PhD. I stink at reading, fall asleep at the first word, I'm out. But no. Then it happened. I guess the big realization was George Floyd incident. We've all been aware of what happened there. And for me, it was a pivotal moment. I saw two groups. There was a Black group advocating for Black Lives Matter. And then there was a group talking about not supporting BLM. Two different groups emerged. And so I started reading. I was really interested in the topic and why this was sort of happening. I really dove in, read as much as I could and quickly. And I went, wait a minute. I read all of this in such a short amount of time. That means I could pursue a PhD. Of course I could. Look at all this reading I just did. So that sort of led to, me being able to talk with friends about like Laureen Sims was talking about, and other people. I could just get in the debate. I could argue based on what I read. And I know when I tried to correspond with one person in particular, and they're always busy, but they responded and we ended up having a Zoom. And I listened. I was like, come on, give me what you got. And there was all this explaining and angst about why there were different opinions. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do about it? You want a job? What do you want? Do you want to move? And I was like, I don't know. Okay, it's fine. I'm thinking about the PhD. I'm seeing the complaining. I'm seeing this call for advocacy and doing something. So I had this great chat with this person and made me feel better. And so I got an email the next day, CC'd to the registrar's office. Said, I think Reggie Best is interested. Could you please talk to him? A follow-up email that gave me that little push I needed. Wow. So I just went ahead. I had the interview, questions were asked, and then I got sent the application and I was like, oh, applying again. Remember, I was still coming from that PhD, not me. And, my mother's influence as well, but I applied and I got accepted. And it wasn't here. It was from.
No, if I wasn't here, I would.
Oh, if I wasn't here, I would be dead or in jail. You know that saying.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, your journey, to getting to this PhD. And I know Dr. Laureen Sims having their support. It's nice that you had that push that you needed. I'm honestly, I'm at a loss for words just because there are, so few Black deaf males who go on to pursue their PhD, particularly at Gallaudet. And, honestly, I look up to you for that. And I have such regard for you for that. I had considered it at various times, but I was never sure. But now hearing your tale, I'm like, maybe this is something I should pursue. Maybe I do have
Yeah,
the capability. So thank you for that inspiration. So I know you're a doctoral student. You finished your first year.
yep, soon.
Okay, so you're almost done with your first year. So I'm wondering, what do you think you'll be pursuing, once you go through your dissertation process and you get those fancy initials in front of your name and you become a doctor? What do you envision doing with that prestigious degree? I'm wondering if you have any plans for that time.
Actually, before I joined Gallaudet, when I was thinking about my future, maybe a superintendent or a principal, you know, but you need background and skills. And I think nobody's going to hire me because I'm Black. Doesn't matter. I have knowledge, I have certifications. But now I'm seeing so much in this PhD program. I'm seeing things differently. And I see more success possibly happening in my future because I'm seeing a lot of people wanting to recruit me, frankly. So I think it's safe to say like more, maybe something with deaf ed in the future. Something, of course, my math background could be applied to. I'm not there yet, but it could be,
Consulting.
I could be a consultant in the future. That might be good. I could be an adjunct professor teaching math right there. That would be great. I did do a seminar, first year seminar, and wow, there was lots of opportunities there. It's really too soon for me to tell. I just see a lot of opportunity.
No, I mean, I know it's maybe too soon to tell, but it's wonderful to hear all of these, various options and tracks that you might pursue once you obtain that degree. And I know that once you do, you'll have a plethora of choices. And I know that you'll, make the wisest decision about what would be most fruitful for you and your family. But I'm really looking forward to seeing where this journey takes you post PhD. So now we've heard a bit about your background and, how you became a teacher and now you're getting your PhD. So having said all of that, could you share a bit about any challenges or barriers you might have faced, whether that be, personally or through your academic journey, and how did you break down any barriers that you might have faced? Thinking of you as a Black deaf male, maybe there were certain things pertinent to that you had to overcome in your career or whatnot. But I mean, we see you now as this successful doctoral student, you're a wonderful teacher. But I imagine that you must have had to face various challenges or barriers just because of who you are. And I'm wondering, how you overcame them. Historically, we know what those are for the Black deaf community, but I'm wondering if you could share a bit about how you got through all of those obstacles.
Happy to. I should start by saying I didn't do this alone. You can't overcome any of this alone. There's many people who have supported me, and I wish I could name them all, but I can't. All the people who've been in my life, you know who you are, and I don't even know all of them, but I want to thank them and emphasize that they are there. Again, there's been many frustrations. I'll pick a few to highlight. One from school struggles and one from employment struggles. I'll focus on those. So let's start with school. I think I've already mentioned a little bit explaining prior to my school experiences and the damage caused by the attitude of like, whatever, and developing that habit until graduation and pulling it through graduation. And those struggles led into adulthood where I'm seeing being, expelled, if you will, or not part of the larger deaf community and feeling that impact a lot. And I think it all stems from that. I have to be careful of trauma and be careful what's said on Facebook and mind my personality. What you put on Facebook and me wanting to just get out there and sign, I've got traumatic experiences of being judged for my sign and how I sign. And so that makes me not want to participate. When I think about college and high school, even Gallaudet and orientation, I mean, Gallaudet, I do want to keep separately as a school, but in all my other situations, dealing with people, when I think about, for example, going into a job at MSSD, the Model Secondary School for the Deaf, for anyone that doesn't know that acronym. And I remember meeting lots of different folks. And it was my first experience sort of, whoa, taking a second, you know, seeing how white deaf people viewed me, and asking different people's names and getting to know people. And me realizing, monitoring my own behavior so I wouldn't be misunderstood. You know, I'm trying to think of how to explain, like, you know, in my old days, you know, it was like baggy clothes with the waistband down and, you know, chilling and just had the vibe going, you know. And my sign was different now than in the past. So if they knew me in the past, I might be looking like this when I sign, like, hey, I'm Reggie, you know, nice to meet you, or whatever. So now I'm meeting new people and trying to get into the job market and say, let's see. And people would say, well, what are you doing? Where are you working? And I would explain, you know, I think I'm going to try to get into MSSD and see what happens there. And then people would say, oh, are you going to be the janitor? You're funny. No. That was one response. Oh, are you going to be working in the kitchen staff then at MSSD? Wrong again. You funny. No. I mean, but these were the expectations for me. I mean, I'm going to teach math. And the response would be like, what? You're going to be teaching math? Yeah. What are you talking about? I just didn't quite I couldn't understand. You know, like, what do you can't teach because you don't sign the right way. That was my first time experiencing real criticism of how I signed. It was really hard to process. And it still hurts, but it gets better every day, you know. And now on Facebook, today's Reggie, I don't care. I just get out there and sign what I'm going to sign. It doesn't matter. And same thing with other people. They just get up there and send their message, you know, whether it's the basketball world or the deaf club. You know, everyone has their little cliques, if you will. Depends on their family, their deaf schools, their sports and hobbies, where they're from. Like, you know, me, I'm all about Georgia, right? I've got friends there, but a constant challenge and struggle is then navigating these other groups. And when I went and worked at other places, I was the only deaf person. Different cultures happen at different places. That can be a challenge. But again, having the right skills to know how to adapt and chat with people really help make those connections and get involved. But I do notice how things are operating, how they do things don't always mesh with my culture and how I want to naturally do things. So that's a challenge. You know, and earlier on, you know, I didn't have the teacher certificate either, right? And so my opinion really wasn't valued. And I thought, well, maybe it's because I don't have the right credentials. Maybe it's because of that. It's not because of my skills or work history or something like that. But now I'm a certified teacher and they recognize I'm one of them and I feel more valued. But getting certified was a challenge. I swear it almost killed me. You know, it took so many years from the basic test and moving forward. So there's a temporary certificate that you get first. I had to take that 20 times.
And it was 200 each time. So, and Ernest is saying, so wait, you're saying it was $200 you had to pay each time you took the test. Let me try and do some quick math here. Oh, you're the mathematician. Maybe you should. 4,000?
I was just getting by. I was broke. And so it was real easy to want to give up. But I had a coworker that lived in this nice home and just had a lifestyle I really wanted. And I was just tired of being tired, you know? So that was my struggle, getting to my dream. So I had to overcome that, which started with dealing with the trauma of how I signed, feeling like I didn't have the right support. And then I had someone wanted to tutor me, a white man wanted to tutor me. So I didn't do it alone. Those kinds of people came forward to support me, to help me get to my goals. And it wasn't just people coming to me. I finally got assertive and sought out things too. And I was broke, but that's how I did it. I hated being broke, and it was a real motivator for me to overcome these things that were holding me back from my dream of being a teacher.
Wow. No, thank you for sharing those two examples. And I think, it is emblematic of a lot of people's experiences, right? Being judged based on your appearance and assuming that you're going to be the janitor or the cook, not assuming that you could do more. And even in terms of being judged based on how you sign too, not even just how you dress, right? And I'm sure that can feel so dismissive, and you're like, no, I'm applying for a teaching position, not a janitorial one. I think it just says so much about that types of judgment. And I think, that's, as the saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover, right?
I wanted to add something too. I just thought of
Sure.
the school that I was working before, ASD. I give them credit too as being part of my journey. At that school, it didn't have certified teachers, especially who were Black. So, and nobody wanted to teach math at that time. The principal said, hey, we don't have anyone. I know you're not certified yet, but you're working on it. So come on in. You can teach math temporarily. And the staff were shocked that I knew that much math and was qualified to do that. But that principal gave me like the gold training, if you will. I went to different math classes and observed those teachers and how they taught. And then I forgot what it was called, but it was linked with teacher certification in some way. So anyway, I had met and they explained how it worked, and they gave me resources, many of them. So that's why I emphasize people came to me, but I went to them. Honestly, back then I wasn't as assertive in seeking help. I'd be like, oh, I'd have to read that. Oh, okay. Ugh, I don't like reading. I'm not good at reading. I'm talking about 6-inch high things to read. You know what I'm saying? Like, not light reading. But I had that attitude of, I would just see the amount of reading and automatically say, no, I just want, like A, B, C, D, and I fall asleep. Multiple choice tests, forget about it. It's just not my thing. But it really almost killed me, the outcomes of all that trauma I had suffered, and me getting to a place where I could sort of enjoy life and see myself as capable and start this journey and be excited and wanting money. So that meant a job, and then there was this one time I had an interaction that ended up in tears, and I was so excited to go back to work once I got certified. So anyway, my big point here is there are so many people to thank who helped me overcome things, and as well as myself reaching out and seeking support.
Well, and I think that just shows how important it is to have that support system that you have to rely on to overcome these challenges. And I'm so happy to see that you were able to persevere and get to where you are now. It's astounding. So with that, knowing that you've had this support system in place and now knowing a bit more about your journey, just to further our conversation a little bit more, I'm wondering if there's a story or two, or an experience that was explicitly dealing with racism that you had faced. Something that was really demoralizing. And also, how did you get past that? What did you learn from that experience? What about that particular experience with racism, made you who you are, or maybe, you know, changed your perception of things? Were you able to turn that moment of racism into a teachable moment for the folks involved? You know, all of that. I'm just wondering if you can share, and it doesn't, please don't feel like you have to water it down. I want to hear, you know, an explicit example of racism, because these things occur to many individuals in the BIPOC deaf community, and we need to share these stories and how we overcome them. So if you wouldn't mind.
I can think of three right off the top of my head. One has to do with Louisiana, one has to do with visiting a friend and a car incident, and the other one has to do with gas. So let's start with Louisiana. I was at a CVS, you know, it's a store. It was hot out, I needed a Coke. And CVS had liquor in it. I can't get used to that, the stores that somehow have liquor in them sometimes, but anyway. I headed in there for my beverage. I'm looking at all the choices. And the manager, I think it was just, I could feel them watching me. It was a huge store, by the way. Had lots of sections in it and lots of drinks to choose from in coolers. And I was really surprised and again stunned by the alcohol available as well. So this person actually moved right to behind me and was watching me. So I went, you know, to the next one. And again, they followed me and were staring. So I finally turned around and looked them in the eye, and they made this face and said, "Hey, you, I'm going to call the cops on you." And I was stunned. So I just left. I just immediately left. I didn't want to get into it with them. I didn't want to try to explain. I was stunned. I just left. All I wanted was a drink. I was just looking. I was interested at the choices. I was surprised at the alcohol. That's why I was lingering. But nope, here it is in my face. I'm going to call the cops on you. So that's one that I believe was race. The other two, oh my God. Friend, that's right. I said friend. You know, when there was a hot presidential race going on between Biden and Trump, right? I'm talking about that time. I'm not talking about that. Let me just make that clear. No politics, not talking about the race. Just that's the context. All right. So I was visiting a friend and I pulled up and, he, you know, they lived in a white area, like whatever. So as I turned the corner, someone, you know, that house, someone pretty young had a big sign that said Trump. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But I saw them see me and they did this, like a gun gesture. Oh man. I told my friend, "What is that? He's going to kill me? What does that mean? What do you think?" And I'm like, "He did it because I was black." So, and that's not a one-time thing, that sort of white reaction like Trump supporters. I saw that multiple times. Now the third one had to do with gasoline, putting in gas. It was Christmas break, I think. And let me think. Yeah, so I pulled up to get gas. I'm chatting with my friend on FaceTime. They need some advice and I'm putting in gas. So yeah, I can talk at the same time, right? And again, here I am thirsty and I got to go get a pop. I don't know what it is about me, but anyway, so I'm signing to my friend and the police pull up. And I like see the cop and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And they go around and they come around again a second time and took off. And then a third time. So I told my friend, you know what? I need to hang up. Something's up. And they're like, "Oh, is it police?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know it." So I hung up. I went in the store. You know, I just wanted a drink, maybe some candy, something. I don't know. Anyway, headed into the store, the little convenient mart. Bought my stuff. And when I came out, there you go. I already knew. 5 cops on me. And they're speaking, right? Of course, blah, 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 blah. Everything's flying at me. I was calm. I'm used to that. This ain't new. I'm tired of it, but I'm used to it. Ain't my first time. My first time I, react different, but my family has trained me over the years what you do in these situations because they happen to us way too much. So I knew what I had to do. So, how you dress changes how they look at you. They thought, oh, I'm a thug, right? They didn't know I'm a professional under these clothes. But they said, whose car? I understood that's what they're saying. I said, it's mine. Then they gestured like this, which I know meant they want my license. So I got my license and gave it to them. Like I knew that was coming. So of course they're scrutinizing and talking into their little, device on their shoulder. And then they had took a look in my car. You know how that goes. That's the next step. They're going to see if they can find anything in my car. And they seemed surprised that it was clean, if you will. And there was nothing in there. I don't know. I guess they thought it was going to be dirty. Anyway, I keep my car tight. Anyway, this type of thing has happened again and again in my life. And you just have to figure out how to deal with it. You're not doing anything wrong. There's no perfect solution to how to stop it, but it happens. And then I've had heavy talks since I've been at Gallaudet about this. And a lot of these talks surprise me because people say like, oh, we can't talk about that in the South. We can't talk about racism. But at Gallaudet, it's an open discussion. Like, let's talk. So that is new to me, being able to talk about this. So I don't feel like I've overcome. I feel like I'm learning how to process racism that's happened to me and others. And I have finally the breath and the availability and space to talk about these things and things that I have found. And there's a lot of really good allies out there I'm seeing now and meeting. And people are trying to solve racism, but it seems to be an impossible task,
You made a lot of good points. I like that you can't overcome it, right? It's more learning how to deal with it or developing those allyships, right? But I mean, racism is huge and prevalent, and it's not going to go away overnight. It's not something we're going to overcome in a day or two. It's just deeply embedded in our society. But I mean, to know that you experienced some of those things as recent as, the time that you've been a PhD student, it's just unbelievable. And I've experienced those types of things throughout my life as well. I really feel you. And they're difficult to discuss sometimes, but it's important that we hold space like this to unpack what happened and to use them as educational moments. And I think it will help everyone heal as well, to share these experiences and not sort of carry the burden of them. It's good to get it out. I know that we're going to be coming up on time here pretty soon, but I did want to ask you another question. So I'm here in the state of Rhode Island. I work for the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And the services for the deaf and hard of hearing community here are quite limited. And I've tried to engage with various BIPOC members of the deaf community here, and then the deaf community at large as well. But there are many challenges that are present. I'm trying to develop a good rapport with all of these subsets of communities. I really want the community to be, inclusive and support each other regardless of race or color or hearing status. I was wondering if you might share a bit of advice, perhaps, as to how you feel the commission can maybe bridge these gaps with BIPOC communities in particular, but also with the community at large. I'm just wondering if you have any bits of advice for how we can improve our situation here in Rhode Island.
That's $1 million question, Ernest, isn't it? It's quite the challenge. I don't have an easy answer for you. There's no right or wrong. I just want to start out with that. So again, when I think about this, I think it starts with relationships. It's about who you know, who your network is. Sad to say, but who you know growing up. If your organization doesn't have people from Rhode Island and access to the Rhode Island community, you're going to have a challenge right there. You don't have an insider. It's a real challenge. So when I was working, for example, I had in-school life and out-of-school life, and those had different connections. So if the school said they wanted a certain thing to be happening, I had a relationship outside of school that there were people I could use as resources to pull in. The assistant director, for example, I remember volunteered and needed a bunch of things and different people to come and support us in this thing that they were doing. You know, whether it was coaching or volunteers or whatever, I knew where to go and I had relationships to pull into that endeavor. But if you don't have that, if you don't know the community, it becomes a challenge. You know, I guess I would say my best 2 cents I can offer you is just get involved with different organizations and try to develop new networks that work with different communities. Figure out, they'll know better what the culture and preferences are of the people they work with. They'll know more specifics. And then by going to them and they're mingling with the communities, you can do something like host something and invite them in, and then they can invite their people in. That sort of chain or network. Whether, you know, maybe they have a program, maybe they have a school, maybe there's certain things they really value and like to be involved in. And you could get to know all of that through the various organizations that work with them and get really creative. You got to do a little research. I give credit to TEDx at Gallaudet. Dr. Sorry, I missed the name.
Benedict?
Gave a speech, was talking about to lead, you have to have good organizer. That's really what leading means. Learning how to organize. So across the USA, we've got lots of schools and professionals, and maybe a few of them sign, like audiologists, for example. So if we find the people who are allied and working with the deaf community, we can work together and fight together to make system changes. So figure out who are the organizers in your community that you should ally with and pull into the good works you're trying to do. And check out TEDx Gallaudet, the 2015, not my idea. They have great things about leadership and what it takes. And if you watch enough of them, you benefit, it really gets in your brain, and then you can start to apply it.
No, those are good points. That's a good bit of advice. I'm going to have to chew on that a little bit, but I really appreciate that. Before we transition to our Q&A time, I do want to just ask you one final question. I'm wondering, you know, what do you think is your greatest moment of success throughout your journey? Perhaps something that you are most proud of, that you've experienced throughout your life.
Can I say two? Because there's two.
Sure.
One, of course, I've already mentioned is getting certified and passing. Without that teacher certification, I mean, that really destroyed my self-esteem going through the process. And if I hadn't have ended successfully, I think that would have ruined me. I would have felt incapable. It would have killed me. Honestly, it would have killed me to not end up with that certification. I thought so low of myself. You know, I'd see how other people lived, and I'd see, you know, all I could think about was people mocking me, bullying me. But then getting that certification just changed my life. It was a 180. That teacher certificate enabled me to be here with you today. It opened doors. So that's a huge one. I've met so many Black deaf people and heard their stories and their struggles with getting certified if that's their goal. You only see a few. I mean, I had to take it so many times. I told you, right? Just that one part is multi-part. There's the deaf ed piece, and then there's the content piece. The deaf ed part, I only had to take 3 times. I was used to it by then, but the earlier parts, not so much. And I was tired of paying, you know, and then I had a part-time job, but now finally I could get a full-time job. So that's important. The second one is signing and that slow process of getting comfortable with signing publicly. You know, before arriving there, if you will, people would encourage me to vlog, for example, on Facebook in a group called Black American Sign Language. That group, I don't know if you heard of it. They would encourage me and I'd say, no, that's not for me. They'd be, come on, just give it a try. But I really didn't want to because I knew it would open me up to criticism. You know, when people are driving and they're hearing, they just do like an audiobook, they're not reading. And so people would say, we need the deaf Black equivalent of that. You know history, lots of things. You could vlog about them, and it's the equivalent of like an audiobook for hearing people. It'd be like a video book for deaf people. So that made sense to me. So I started reading and picking topics, and I would vlog about it. And a big part of feeling successful is people asking for more from me. Because again, I had that trauma. I was unworthy. My sign was less than. But okay, I can read books and sign. So that was a huge thing to overcome within myself. And how I overcame it was hearing a different script about myself, hearing positive things.
Wow, it really is amazing. And I've been so thrilled to hear your stories today, about your journey and all that you've overcome. And now, to even further your exposure to signing publicly, you're here on Facebook Live, and to know all that you're endeavoring in your PhD program. Your journey really, it's amazing to get to know more about that. It is time to wrap up, but we will have a Q&A portion now, and we'll have the interpreters sign those questions, and then you can go ahead and answer them. And then we'll save a couple minutes for wrapping up with some final comments.
Okay, math in middle school. Got it. I talk about this all the time in my class when I'm teaching. So honestly, as a math teacher, we have to be creative. We have to meet the students where they're at. We have to recognize where their skills are, where their gaps and weaknesses are. I could easily just, assign a book and say, here, this is how you find a slope. This is how you do fractions. This is how you do whatever, factoring. Here, follow the book. But I don't teach that way. If I did that, I noticed that develops that attitude of like, I don't care about this. I don't understand math. Math is too hard for me. So we have to make sure they've got a solid foundation before we go to these higher level math skills. So for example, I'll say, if you don't know division or math multiplication and you're struggling, I understand. We've got to get you there first. It's okay to have a weakness. Your process, might be a little longer. That's fine. We're going to try different strategies. I'll try different things in my teaching. Then we'll focus on the bigger goals. We'll go back. We keep going back to that foundation, getting those skills, and then continuing to the next level when they're ready for the next concept. If you notice in the next concept, they're, struggling, you head back again to that foundation, and sometimes even pre-foundation. So I just find this is the key. Recognize, teach that foundation, focus on that, and then recognize, right now, for example, my semester at Gallaudet, one problem I've noticed is there's 11 weeks. Wait, let me think about this. Hold on. There's 11 weeks compressed into one problem. You know what I mean? You get this problem and you have 11 weeks, it's broken down into parts to sort of solve that problem with a graph. There's one graphing problem. So, but that's a great way to think about it. So you start from the end and work your way back. What are the building skills to be able to solve that problem? You have to look back. So that would be my recommendation. Okay, the next question. Over the course of your career, how have you recognized the individual strengths of your students, and how have you built relationships with the students and their families? Sure. In terms of recognizing, of course, we do what's called formative assessment. You know, like at the beginning of the class, we could have a warm-up activity. And the warm-up helps me, you know, if I throw a problem their way or something we did yesterday, to see them practice and do it again. It's like taking the pulse of the class to see who's got it, who doesn't, who really doesn't. And then, only then can I begin teaching a new concept. And before class is done, I'm going to give them another assessment. And I call it like the outdoor ticket, like the ticket to get out. Before you leave, you've got to do this and give it to me. It's not for a grade. It's just for me to check in. I let them know that, you know. And it's also a way to build a relationship with your student, right? Everybody has different perspectives. So what works for me might not work for you. I want to emphasize that. But things that work for you, for me, I use again and again, and I'm honest and share them with people as things that work for me. Sometimes students, for example, hold on, I'm trying to think of a good example. When I first became a teacher, I remember teachers having discussions and giving warnings and talking about students throwing chairs, for example, and inside I was terrified. I was freaking out. Are you serious? What? So they were all laughing and saying, don't worry. But I was like, oh boy, keep the faith, Reggie. You can do this. So anyway, I tried to stay positive. And then I wanted to have a good relationship. And I told the students straight out, listen, I'm hearing all these stories and I want to have a good relationship. I'm a little bit scared of you right now. What can I do? And they cracked up. Why? I was honest, and that gave an immediate connection with them. So is that approach going to work for everyone? No, but it worked with me. Honesty really works for me. And I find it's how I connect with families too. You know, most of my school is Black students, so it's easier for me. I take advantage of that we share culture. I'm also a coach. I can use that relationship because parents just seem to love how I manage my boys. You know, of course I want to win. Let's get that straight. Of course I want to win. But really the underlying goal is for them to become better humans. And there's a lot to that. And there's a lot of things I have to do to cause that change. And I just tell them, if you continue acting crazy or silly or whatever, you're going to end up broke like I was. I don't want to see you be broke like I was. I want you to be like the successful me that learned how to hard work. And yeah, it's boring at times. It is boring. But when that part is done and you've satisfied yourself and met your goals and are successful, work hard, then you play hard, right? That's what I tell them. Do you know Wiz Caliph, the rapper? Wiz Khalifa? Sorry. Yeah, he says it all the time. Work hard, play hard. So they know that and they connect with that message right away.
That was a great answer. I think we just have one final question here. It's a short one.
What would you like to share about the importance of the representation of BIPOC teachers and administrators. Oh, yeah, that's an important one. Whew. I could go on on that topic, but we don't have enough time. Let me think. How can I be concise? All right. I'm thinking of a friend and myself. I couldn't pass the teacher certification. Again, I was honest with you about my journey and how lazy I was. But this teacher felt responsible. He shared, wanted to share power and a powerful message. And there was perfect attendance for 5 years, and there was an obligation to Black students, particularly, teachers don't want students to think, you know, you want people to think you're the kitchen staff, for example, or the cleaning staff.
I think we don't want to have the only aspirations for students to be janitorial or cooking staff if that's the only people that they see in those roles.
So when I look back and I'm thinking about 9th grade and teaching math class, I remember a student raising their hand and saying, you know, I have a question. And it said, I think your school made a mistake. Huh? A mistake? No. And they said, yeah, you're supposed to be a white hearing woman or a white hearing man to teach. I've never seen a Black deaf teacher before. They were really thrown off by this. So that stayed with me. That shows that representation matters. That speaks to your point that this happened to be a Black female student, but she was just thrown off by the fact that a Black male who was deaf was her teacher. So it's important to introduce teachers to the parents, for example. And you know, a parent will be like, hi, I'm looking for Reggie Best. And I'll say, hey, that's me. How are you? And the faces, I need to speak to Reggie Best. You know, it's advanced algebra. And I'm like, yeah, that's me, Reggie Best. I'm not playing. And they are still confused. But you're the basketball coach. There you go. Again. So it's important that students see people that look like themselves, so that we can break through these stereotypes about what we can be.
Yeah, no, that was great. And we're coming right up on time now, but thank you. Your answers were awesome. Your stories were tremendous. Again, it was such an honor to have you here for our Oceanside chat. I really enjoyed our conversation. It is time to wrap up, but I want to thank you again and thank people from the commission who were coordinating this Zoom for us. And thank you, Reginald, for joining us today. I can't express my gratitude enough. I hope that everyone enjoyed sort of their lunch break, getting to watch this conversation. Thank you to the interpreters as well. We will have subsequent Oceanside chats with various BIPOC folks going forward as well. We'll let you know those dates shortly. Thank you so much. Hope everyone has a great day.